So, good evening. Thank you for coming. As always, we're thankful that you continuously support Claudia and I doing this, and we really enjoy it. Today, we have two special guest speakers. Vinay in Hindi means humility, humbleness, and he's one of the most humble guys I ever met. And I truly am thankful, Vinay, for you to come here and enlighten us on the AI ML journey and tell us more about what Qlik is doing. To introduce Vinay, he's been involved with Qlik for long, 7+ years. Especially, if you use some of these Qlik Sense features, such as the search, the Augmented Intelligence, the Insight Advisor, those features are continuously growing. He will tell us more about those. And Joe in Hindi means joy. I'm just making it up.
Oh my God.
But it's joy to see him. And again, Joe is joined now with Lib, and he's going to tell us how to make your data talk and create a more effective data story with Lib. So thank you both.
So just very quick, we are live streaming tonight. So just want to warn you guys, if you don't want your question recorded, then you should ask offline afterwards. Otherwise, yeah, we're on YouTube live. Just testing it out for the first time. I'm very excited about it. Also, Joe brought some, what is it? Second time, that's right. We did try it last time. And Joe brought some Vizsla goodies, and it's we don't have enough for everybody, so it's first come, first serve. There you go. It's really cool stuff. All right, let's get started. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, just one very quick thing. If you guys have any job openings, would you stand up? And I know Choa does. So, Ravi, would you like to advertise your position? Yeah.
Two. That's good. I think I can. We have two BI developer positions open in our analytics group. So please check it out on LinkedIn or our website or we have published actually as BI positions and analytics developers. So please check them out and then always thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to start doing this from now on. Always.
Here you go. Thank you.
All right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Vinay, and in case talking about job openings, if you're tired of the perfect weather in Atlanta and you want to move to the cold, north in Ottawa, we are hiring too. So check out qlik.com/careers, and we're hiring a bunch of people. Would love to have some more Qlikkies in the house. My name is Vinay. I am a director of product management at Qlik. I can introduce myself in numbers. That's not me. That's the next slide. So I'm 42 years old. I've been with Qlik for about 8 years. I manage 3 products or 3 product lines at Qlik. I manage our mobile products, the desktop product, and all of our AI offerings. So, any of those products you have any complaints with, I'm the person to blame. I've lived in 7 countries. I have 2 kids, 2 boys, 13 and 9. And if they are watching, hey boys, go do your homework. Don't watch this. And I speak 3 different languages. And the third one is not the one that you think it is. Here's my shameless plug for my Twitter account, Vinay Cap. What I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to talk about AI in general, what the perception in the industry is. For a lot of you, this will be a real introduction. For some of you, looking at you, Spiros, you can just ignore that part of the presentation. But it's really an introduction on AI. It has nothing to do with Qlik, right? The second thing I want to talk about is the reason why, as an industry, we should be looking at AI, right? It's not about the technology. The technology is great. but there are use cases and things about AI that can help us. And I'm going to talk about bias specifically. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about our products and our roadmap. I will keep that short towards the end. And I have an exciting demo for you. There's only one team outside of Qlik that's seen this new feature that I'm going to show you today. It's not out yet. It's going to come out in a week or so. So I can show it to you because I'm fairly confident that the team will deliver. If not, we can just erase this, right? No, yeah, it's something very exciting. So I'm really excited to show that to you. But before I go into all of that, right, let's just get the basics out of the way. And with AI, like artificial intelligence, there is the expectation that this is this overpowering technology that's going to come and take all of our jobs away, and this automation it's terrible, and we don't know what's going to happen. Everything's going to get automated and we lose all of our jobs. That's on one end of the spectrum on how people look at AI and think about AI. At the other end of the spectrum is this, this Twitter bot that Microsoft released. Anyone remember this? Anybody know about the story of this? This was a bot they released, and the idea was that the bot would learn from tweets. It would be driven by machine learning, and what happened was obviously people found out what was going on and they started tweeting hate speech to the bot, and it started learning hate speech, and they had to tear it down. So that's the other side of the equation, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is that what is artificial intelligence? Is this overpowering technology that we are talking about, or is it this piece of technology that is useless because it just entirely depends on what you feed it? And the reality is that this is reality of AI, right? This is artificial intelligence. I've oversimplified the algorithm, but this is a basic machine learning algorithm that you can use to teach a piece of machine on how to learn from data, right? What you're seeing is a simple mathematical equation. You have a parameter, you have some data that you can feed, and you get an output, right? So what AI is, it's a set of algorithms that allow you to mimic human behavior. That's basically it. Any algorithm that allows you to mimic human behavior is artificial intelligence. You could be doing pattern matching, driving a car, reading newspapers and finding insights from there, etc. All of that is AI. On the other side of the axis is machine learning, which is another set of algorithms. So machine learning is a set of algorithms that allow machines to learn. There are three tenets to machine learning. One is there should be no explicit rules. So if you're going to write a bunch of code where there are rules that tell your machine what to do, that's not machine learning. It has to be driven by data, which means that it tries out different things and learns from that, and it has to not apply any statistical techniques, right? And I know this is very theoretical, but we'll get to a simple example and things will be easier after that. So machine learning basically enables AI. So let's take an example, right? This is all theory. I want to take an example and see how this works. So let's say we want to predict house prices, and you can notice I have a little bit of data. I know what the size of the house is. That's an input, 2,000 square feet. I know the house is 10 years old, and I also know that this house is worth $200,000, right, on the market. So what I can do is I can use my equation that I had earlier, and I can use a random set of parameters. So if I go back one slide, let me show you what I was talking about. So we'll use this equation, right? So this is the size of the house. That's the age of the house. This is 2,000 square feet, 10 years old, and I'm going to just pick two random numbers for W1 and W2. And I'm going to try to get to 200,000 by picking any two random numbers. It doesn't really matter what those numbers are. I want to get to 200,000. So what I do is I pick 100 and 0, and I get 200,000 out of that. Simple math, right? So that's my prediction algorithm. I just built a simple machine learning algorithm. Let's go and make a bunch of money, right? Now we can start predicting house prices. Great. This is awesome. There's just one little problem. There's a new data point. 3,000 square feet, 20-year-old house, plug it into that same equation, it doesn't work. It fails, right? It predicts 320,000, which is actually, it predicts, sorry, 300, whatever. You can do the math. 300,000, I believe, yes. And that fails. So what we do is now we find two new numbers. In this case, I replace my 100 and 0 by 80 and 4,000. I plug that into both these equations and I get the right answer on the other end, right? This time, these two new parameters help me get to the right answer for both these equations. That's machine learning. This is essentially what happens when you run a machine learning algorithm on a bunch of data. It just tries all of this different parameters and tries to find numbers that match the equation, and out you get a simple answer. That's it. That's all there is to it. So, then that's the solution to all our problems. What we can do is just feed the machine all of the data, and we can all take a step back, relax, and don't have to do anything ever again. So there's a little problem with that, which is, here's an example. Amazon in 2014 asked their recruitment team to build an algorithm that would help them find CVs that would match specific positions. What happened was that they started noticing that this algorithm had a bias towards men. Can anyone guess why?
All the data had men as their source.
Exactly. That's the problem. It's a problem in the data. The data has bias. So these are statistics on global headcount on different companies, male versus female, employees in technical roles, right? It's well-known problem in the industry. The problem is when you feed this data which has implicit bias built into it, your machine will have bias, right? So all of that stuff that we showed earlier with the algorithm, that data ends up having, that algorithm ends up having bias on the other end. So, you're not getting anywhere. So this is, XKCD has XKCD for everything, which is great. So here's an XKCD for machine learning. Basically says, this is your machine learning system. You pour data into this big pile of linear regression algebra, and you get answers on the other end. What if the answers are wrong? Well, we keep turning, right? That's the problem with AI and machine learning today, that if you take a pure mechanical approach to how you implement AI in your organization, right? If you have an AI-driven project, you're trying to look at machine learning in your organization. If you try to have a purely mechanical approach, you are going to fail, because all of that bias that you're trying to get rid of is in the data already. So you need to be aware of it. So we can do better than this, and we can start involving humans in the process, which is what we are really good at, right? We can find that bias. But there's another problem with that. But to show that problem, what we're going to do is we're going to run a little test here. We'll have some audience participation. So let's just say that we all have suddenly been recruited to the Ferrari F1 racing team, all of us, right? Perfect. We're all members of the team. Some of us are in the pit crew, some of us are engineers, right? Doesn't really matter. Now what happens is that we've been having a great season this season, all right? We've won some races. However, our car keeps running into this problem where the gasket keeps blowing. The engine's gasket keeps blowing. So the engineer comes to you and shows you some data and says, here, this is the relationship between temperature and gasket failures. I can see that my gasket fails at every single temperature range, right? So starting from 50 degrees, 55, 60, 65, 70, every single temperature range, I have a gasket failure. There's a big race coming up tomorrow. This race is very, very important. This is what decides the championship, okay? Is the big one. If we don't race in this one, we're gonna really lose the season. Bunch of our sponsors are gonna step out. It's not gonna be good. So the engineer is looking at this data and tells you, well, we are a racing team. I can see that every single temperature range, there's a gasket failure. I think we should go out and race. Because racing inherently has risk built into it, right? So what should we do? We are all members of the team. If we take a vote, should we go out and race, or should we not race? If we race and win, we win the championship. If we race and the gasket blows, it's not going to be good PR, right? But if we don't race, we know we are going to lose the season. What should we do? Race. Why? We want to win. We want to get to the finish line. Absolutely. And that's what a logical person would say, right? Here's the problem. We are looking at data of failures, right? Nobody asked for data for success in this room. Nobody said, can you show me data where the race finished successfully? And that's the data. And what you notice in that data is that below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, we've never, or actually even below that, yeah, around 65, we've never had a successful race below 65 Fahrenheit. So we should really be looking at temperature. and deciding based on that. Now, what's interesting about this piece of data is that this is the exact same piece of data that another management and engineering team looked at and came to the same conclusion. Anyone recognize this? Is the Challenger shuttle. It was the exact same piece of data they looked at, exact same conditions, and the exact same decision that they reached. And the reason for that, well, we'll go into the reason, but I just want to walk you through the probability. Again, you can do the math, but basically what you see is that at certain temperature ranges, your probability of failure was 100%. And it was in the data. It was there. There's a really good book called Truth, Lies and Gaskets, I believe, which is written on this whole thing, and I highly recommend reading that book. Why do we think this happened? Why did these people who had access to all of this data, why did they decide to go and launch this shuttle?
They used to
We're not going to get into that, okay? Dalton's clapping. So it goes back to bias that I was talking about. Here are some of the reasons, and the reasons were that there was routine success. This caused risk blindness. They had a lot of successful launches. They're completely blind to risk. They had a very high risk tolerance, like racing, right? It's a risky business. Of course, we should go and race. They had a severe budget pressure. That was the other thing. There was a strong financial incentive, just like winning a race. There was another one. There was the first teacher in space, that event. It was a goal of generating this enthusiasm. And there had been, all of the way up to this launch, there had been previous delays. So while the engineers were clear about the risk to this plan, the folks who were making the decision were blind to the risk because of bias, right? And this goes back to, and again, I'm going to tie it back to what I was saying earlier, so just stay with me for a few more minutes. But it goes back to this, when it comes to decision making, this my slide is cut on the top, but when it goes to decision making, a lot of analytics are focused on decision making in this space, right? Finance and engineering, numbers, really being driven by those numbers. What we don't see and often fail to recognize is there is a whole lot of science around decision analysis, organization behavior, and behavior analysis, which tells you that if a person sees data right in front of them, they'll try to find the data that helps them reach their goals. Confirmation bias. So you can show all the data in the world to people, they'll find exactly what they need to find to get to that. So we have that bias built into us. Anchoring bias, the way I presented this problem to you, I had tuned your brains to reach that conclusion that I wanted you to reach when I asked the question. I had already talked about risk, I had talked about all of that, right? So there is bias in your brain that I was tapping into. There's availability bias. There was a decision available to you, there's data available to you. We just went for it, right? And representativeness, where you basically represent, there's a framing and sunk cost bias as well. Sunk cost bias is interesting. Anybody ever been in a project where you've already poured in $1 million, it's going to fail, but you keep pouring in more money because you really want to succeed because you poured in money into it already, right? So that's sunk cost bias. The basic economics will tell you, and anybody who's been to a business school knows this, that basic economics will tell you that it doesn't matter how much money you put into a project. The question you need to ask yourself is how much money are you going to spend going forward, and you take a decision based on lower economic costs. But despite that, we have this sunk cost bias. So we know that we are doomed if we go down the road of having pure machine learning, because there are biases in the data, and we are doomed if we go down the road of just letting us as humans drive decisions, because we have bias as well. So the approach we have at Qlik, and what we as an industry need to adopt, is bringing these two together, right? The human and the machine element working together in a complementary manner. Yes, data has bias, but guess who's really, really good at finding that bias in the data, right? A person. A person is really good at looking at data and telling you exactly which of those fields, gender, age, race, right? All of these fields that they know have bias built into those fields, take them out of your data. And then you can use the machine to do things like counterfactual analysis, because that means that you as a person are no longer biased. So this is our approach, and this is the approach that we really want the industry to follow, which is combining human and machine intelligence. So at the bottom end here is traditional BI, right? First generation of BI, which provided value to very few people, and there was very little in it which was machine driven. This is traditional BI. So around 2009, 2010, the industry started going this direction, visual data discovery, which provided a lot of value to a lot of people. But there wasn't much machine intelligence built into it, right? There were a lot of tools here which were basically driving statistical and algorithmic natural language processing, but these tools were not accessible to a lot of people because the technology and the user interfaces were really specialized for use by a certain persona. So what's happening now, and where we really want to see the industry go, again, when you think about AI use cases in your organization, what you should be doing is to bring these two together, right? And that's augmented intelligence. So the visual element is great, but that needs to be combined with a machine-driven approach, a data-driven approach that helps you find that insight, that peripheral finding in the data. And that's the basic tenet of Qlik's cognitive engine. We really want to drive that. We just started on this journey with the cognitive engine, so I don't claim that we've reached there. Obviously we are starting, but this is the goal that we have at Qlik. We want to make sure that human intuition and machine learning work together. We don't see decisions being taken in vacuum by a machine. We understand that the human needs to be part of the decision making, a critical part of the decision making, because that intuition that people tell you, oh, human intuition is terrible, we should know. Human intuition is great. It just needs to be coupled with the right tools to help tune that, right, in the right direction. So yeah, again, back to the cognitive engine, augmented user intuition, it provides insights and automation. I'll do a quick demo in the end of something that I mentioned is pretty exciting, and we have machine learning built into it, so it gets smarter over time. So our unique approach is this. We see these two working hand in hand together, right? That's the best way to do things. Any one of them is in charge of the ship and the ship's going down, we are in trouble, right? Is them working together. So I'm going to skip a couple of slides in the interest of time. I want to talk about this a little bit. So our approach to accelerating insight ties into 3 different areas, and you will see us focusing a lot on these. First one is the user experience. Every single thing that we do in machine learning and AI, which is augmented intelligence for us, we want to make sure A, it's easy to understand for people, right? Really easy to understand, shouldn't be scary. And B, it provides a way for the person to go in and make things, change things, right? If you see something that the machine didn't get right, we want the human to go in and provide that input and fix it, because we understand that this is a back and forth. And again, I'm happy to show that demo if needed. Associative index. Why is associative index better than, let's say, a SQL based tool when you're running machine learning? Well, SQL by definition will create views and narrow down data that you're looking at, unless you do like a full outer join, in which case you can see that spinning circle spin all day long, right? So associative index allows you to keep the entire data in memory, run your algorithm on that entire data set, not just a subset. And if you are clicking around as a user and you're selecting, let's say, a certain year, we can run an algorithm on the selections outside of that year. So your sales in 2017 were great, but guess what? In 2016 you had an outlier, and looks like in 2020 or 2019 the weather is going to be similar as that year. So this is something you should be looking at, right? These are the kind of things we can do with the associative index, which you can't do with SQL. And it's built on open platform, which is my favorite side, is this one. We don't believe we can deliver every single user interface, every single feature, every single piece of technology out there, right? We rely on this community that's here. We rely on all of you to innovate on top of what we are doing to bring greater value to our customers, because we really believe in that crowdsourcing, right? This is a basic tenet of everything that we do at Qlik. We provide APIs for you to be able to do everything that we can do within Qlik. So when you look at what I'm going to show you, right, or if you take an example of the Qlik Insight bot, what we are doing right now is we are building APIs around it, right? We're not adding new features. What the team is doing right now is building a bunch of APIs, because yes, it's a great product, that we provide, but guess what? Maybe one of you can provide a product that's tuned to a specific industry. Maybe there's a bot specifically for healthcare, right? Maybe there's a bot specifically for manufacturing that we would never invest in. Those are the kind of things that we see this community doing. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pause. I want to go into a demo real quick, but before I do the demo, I want to ask a question because I have a couple of different demos that I can do. Depends on what the audience has seen before. So I know that there has been a presentation of, and Dalton did cover the Qlik Insight bot a while back, right? Which is great. Have folks already seen this, right? People are aware of that, or is that something new? Qlik Insight bot the product. Would you like to see that? Yeah, couple of heads nodding. I can take that real quick. How many folks in the audience are currently using or deploying Qlik in their organizations? Quite a few. Okay, so I don't have to show you how to create a bar chart, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to do two demos. I'll show you the Insight bot real quick, show you what it does, what's unique about it. Dalton, please feel free to chime in. I think you do a wonderful job of demoing it. I'll also show you natural language within Qlik Sense in the Insight Advisor, full natural language, which is completely new. Very few folks outside of Qlik have seen it, and it's getting out in a week or so. So I'm really excited about that. So with that, let me see if we can get this going. I'm always nervous when doing live demos. So I'll just give it a few seconds to refresh. There we go. So this is the Qlik Sense hub, and I need to minimize my window because you don't actually see the bot. There we go. Now you see it right here. So this is the Qlik Sense hub. You all know this quite well since a lot of people here have used Qlik Sense. It is the beginning of your journey within the Qlik Sense universe, right? Every morning you come here, I'm sure, or several times a day, and you look at your data to make those data-driven decisions, right? However, here's the problem with dashboards and visualizations. Does anyone know what the adoption within the BI industry today is? Like adoption of BI tools within organizations on an average? And Spiros is not allowed to answer because I'm sure he knows. But can anyone guess? 40%? Any other numbers? 30 actually. 30 is the right number. So you're pretty close. It used to be 20. So 30 is great. So in any organization, it's laughing. Absolutely, it is funny and sad at the same time. And you think about all of this work that we do around data driven, and we need to be data driven and all of that stuff. 70% of your organization is not listening to what you're saying. And the reason for that is data literacy, right? A lot of people have trouble understanding a basic visualization. The example I'd start to take now is my dad in India. Okay, he's 80 and he just got a new dashboard that he's looking at his finances. He's got a little thing where he looks at his steps. He's not going to look at a dashboard every single day. How do I get my dad to use data? And you know what my dad's really good at? Using natural language. Right? That's his natural tool of choice, and that's the reality for a lot of people out there. I just put a demographic in the spotlight, but for a lot of people out there, they have trouble understanding the basics of what a visualization is. What does an outlier mean? How many people know what an outlier is, right? So either we can train everyone how to read a visualization, or we can deliver analytics to them in the language that they understand, right? And that's what the bot is about. It's a conversational interface that allows you to understand analytics in the most easy to use manner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start by typing hello, and I get a little greeting, although I get a little greeting, and it tells me exactly what I can do, right? What questions can I ask? Let me zoom into this a little bit so folks can see this better. This is customizable, so in your organization when you deploy the bot, you can change this to whatever you want. And I can start by asking, okay, what apps do I have in my bot? So I have a couple of apps: retail convenience, workforce performance. That looks great. So I'm going to go and look at retail convenience. I want to do some sales analysis today. The moment I select that app, I get some basic KPIs returned to me, again in natural language. And at this point, I can start engaging with this bot in natural language. So I can say, for example, show me sales. And what it does is it's pretty interesting. Not only will it bring up sales, it tells me that my total sales are 19 million. It creates a little time series analysis, right? Creates a little visualization that tells me exactly what my sales are over time. It creates this chart and puts it in an application so that I can go and look at that visualization later. Because it's not enough to have just a natural language interface. Sometimes you want to go look at a plain old dashboard, and we give that option to you. And what's interesting is it gives you a scent of what you could be asking next, right? Maybe you should be interested in last year or year on year, right? Which is a natural next question to ask. So your engagement with data continues. We try to get you into this concept of flow when you use a user interface and you lose this concept of time. You just keep engaging with it. That's called flow, and that's what we're trying to do here, to get you engaged with this, right? So high engagement. It remembers the context. So for example, I asked about sales. I want to see sales by product group as a pie chart. I don't have to ask that whole thing again. Because the bot remembers my context, I can just say by product as a pie. It's not going to bake a pie for me, which would have been awesome, but it will create a pie chart for me, which is the next big thing, right? So it remembers the context, which is great. I can dig in, and again I can ask, how about Norristown? And again it remembers that context. I can do comparison, so I could ask a question like compare sales with cost of goods sales, and it will create a comparison. I can do prediction, so I can say predict sales, and it will create a simple linear regression and tell me exactly what my sales will look like. It didn't predict this time. This was historical data, which was interesting, but hey, one demo break, that's fine. I'm allowed that. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, forecast. Okay, I can try that too. Predict works, but I'll take Dalton over. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, my one demo moment. The last thing I can do is I can close the loop with analytics, right? It's not enough to find this information. I want to know when something happens, I want that delivered to me in my inbox. So I can create an alert, and I can say, alert me when sales reach 1 million, and it's going to create an alert. Oh, it already exists because I was demoing yesterday. So the alert already exists, but I can clear the alert and create it again. It goes to your email. It goes to your email. So again, I'm going to do that. Alert me. And hopefully it creates a new alert. There we go. Woo, new alert. And I can make it recurring. And it goes to your email. So what you see is you see some natural language generated that tells you exactly what your sales are, etc., etc. I see your question here. Yes. Great question. So the question is, are organizations better off investing in this than say end printing or not? So the answer to that question is every organization has different needs. Within an organization, your departments have different needs, right? You will have people who want a PDF delivered to them every single day because that's their use case, right? It's not fair to force these people to change behavior. You can encourage them, but you can't force them. So the right approach is to find out what your organization's needs are and buy the product or deploy the product that works for those user needs. So you'll have some people who really want a conversational interface. You'll have some people who want a PDF. You'll have some people who want a plain old dashboard, right? And guess what? We deliver all of that, right? So we are a platform. Another question there. So the question is like, can you use this on other products, right? Right. So this is that's a great question. The Qlik Insight bot is a product that's tied to the Qlik platform, which means that every single user needs to have a Qlik Sense license for it, and you use Qlik Sense Analytics, which is we are a Magic Quadrant leader, so our platform is obviously very comprehensive there. So there will be a little more time for Q&A later. I have 5 more minutes. I want to make sure I show you the next demo, which is actually pretty exciting. So this is great, right? This is the bot. It's a conversational interface. And it provides a lot of value. It provides you basic prediction, natural language generation, alerting, all of that. But sometimes all you want to do is a basic search. And within Qlik Sense, we've had search for a very long time, but the search hasn't been full natural language search. What I'm going to show you now, excuse me, is full natural language search within the Qlik Insight bot, sorry, Insight Advisor, which is coming to a QCS deployment, Qlik Cloud Services deployment, which is our cloud edition of the product on the end of September, early October. It's also going to be available on our Kubernetes platform, which is, you know, a Qlik Sense Enterprise for deployment in your private cloud. So if you don't, first of all, if you want to get up and running with your analytics, we provide a SaaS service where you can get up and running within minutes. But if you're working in an industry like healthcare where you don't want your data in the cloud, you can use our Kubernetes platform to deploy that in a private cloud. The third option we have for deployment of Qlik Sense Enterprise is on Windows, and the same feature that you see now will be in Windows in a short period. I don't have a timeline for that, but we are working on that right now. So what I'm going to do is I have a simple app here. I'm actually going to delete this sheet because I want a completely empty app. So you folks know Qlik Sense quite well. Qlik Sense, you know, you build dashboards using apps. This is an app where I brought in one single table. There's no sheet, there's no metadata. I just dragged and dropped one sheet, one Excel file into this and did nothing as a developer. Out of the box, what I have is the Insight Advisor, right? So for those of you who've used the Insight Advisor earlier, you'll notice that it's slightly different. The search box is a little bit bigger. The generate insight button is a little lower because we want you to search, you know, it's emphasis and hint. And what you can do is you can now engage with this data in full natural language. So I can start by asking a basic, very, very simple question. By the way, it remembers your last 10 to 15 questions that we succeeded in answering. So you can see I've been demoing. So I can ask, what are my total sales? And that's a pretty straightforward question. What it does is it creates a KPI object that I'm going to make the window smaller because again the projector is cutting off a part of my screen. There we go. So what you notice is it matched sales with the field called sales. It understood the word total should be aggregated as a sum. It understood you're looking at one single data point, so you should have a KPI as a result, right? All of those decisions were made within seconds in that product. What's great is we'll tell you exactly what we are doing. So we tell you exactly what we matched because there's a little bit of data literacy here, right? So your users will learn as they use the product on how the machine builds these visualizations so that they can start doing that themselves. And if I edit this, I can see a little bit more information. It tells me a little bit about the analysis type, tells me it's a fact type analysis, tells me exactly which measures, tells me why we pick certain things, right? Which is great. Very simple. I can ask for total sales by country. And what it will do now is it will create a map. And again, it matched my fields, right? So it's creating these aggregations, it's creating these visualizations on the fly. No developer has created them. It's doing this on the fly in there pretty fast, right? It's in memory. Another thing that I can do is I can ask for data for a specific country. So I'm going to say sales for United States. Now notice when I'm searching, it's searching not just your metadata, it's also searching all of your data and bringing that out live, which is pretty good, right? It's looking at everything, not just your metadata. So I can search for United States, and you know what it does? It doesn't apply a selection. It actually, for those of you who are developers here, it's creating a set analysis expression on the fly. So we just created a set analysis expression based on natural language. So if you look here, I think if you do this, this one is a set expression right here. And I can go and change it. I can add filters to it. I can visually change the set expression. And if I add this to a sheet and I go there, again, this is for those folks who are actually really interested in this, you can see what we are doing. That's the set expression we generated on the fly. And this can get pretty complex. For those of you who've written set analysis expressions, this is pretty awesome. This is pretty awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we, you know, you can keep going. So this is, let me just go back. Yeah, let's try. So let's see if I have something more complex. So let's say what or my sales. It can also create time series analysis. I'm not going to show that in the interest of time. So let's say United States for, I don't know, let's say 2017. I hopefully have that data. So I actually don't have, what's going to happen is, oh, this is interesting. This is fun. So in my data model, I have no table that has year coded in that table, right? I have one column that's order date, which has individual dates. What it did was it aggregated all those dates into 1 year and created a set expression with the year, and it shows you the range of data that it picked. I can go and visually actually change that. So I can choose what that range should be, okay, which is pretty cool. And I can also go and see what that looks like. So there we go. That's sorry, that's the wrong one. There you go. That's what it looks like, that expression. And it can keep getting more and more complex, right? I'm just this is a basic demo. I've got very basic data, but it can get a lot more complex than this. If I wanted to search for revenue, this is the last thing I'm going to show before I hand it over to Joe, because I know I'm running over time, but just wanted to show one real thing. What happens when it fails, right? So let's say I ask for what is my revenue. Now there's nothing in my data model that points to a field or data called revenue, right? So we told you we didn't fully understand the question, what's revenue? We don't know what revenue means. We have no idea what revenue means. Here's something that might be useful. Well, what I can do as a developer is I can go and create a master item. I don't have to reload data to do this. I can go and create a master item, and I can create let's create a measure, and let's say sum of sales. I want to see total sales, and I can create a special tag. It's called an alt tag, which is a synonym. So I can create a tag called alt tag, alt revenue. What it does is when I type this alt here in the tags, it's telling the Insight Advisor that, hey, this is a synonym for that field. So if somebody asks about revenue, I want you to pick this measure up, right? And I don't have to reload data to do this. This is on the fly because it's in memory. You can keep adding alt tags. You can have 20 synonyms in there if you want to. And hopefully this works. Okay. I get pretty nervous because sometimes it takes a while to refresh. I'll refresh it. Well, my expression was not perfect, but it worked. It picked up sales as a field, but it told me my total sales are 0. So there we go, demo moments. But I mean, you know, hopefully you get the idea. My demo was not perfect, but you get the point. This is all vanilla Qlik. Yeah, this is all in the product. But again, remember that it doesn't give you any of the conversational experience. It doesn't tie into Slack, Microsoft Teams, etc. Yeah. That's a great question. So the question is, I asked for a specific year, 2017. Maybe I was trying to cheat. What about last year? So we have that intelligence built in. You can ask for compare. You can ask for last year. You can ask for year on year. You can ask for this year. You can ask for year to date. You can. There's a bunch of things that are in there, and they are almost all of them are documented. So some of them are there for you to find. So yes, that works.
Is last year compared to the current year or the last date of the data?
You can specify that. So the question is, you know, in terms of calendars, what if I don't want to follow a Gregorian calendar? What if I have a calendar that's based on fiscal year? Yeah, you can specify that in your data model. Yeah. More questions? I think we are into the Q&A. Yep, one more question. That's a great question. So the question is, you know, what if it gets things wrong? Can I train it? Yes, you can, absolutely. So there are a couple of ways of training it. As a developer, you can go in there, ask a bunch of questions, see what the answers are. If you don't like them, you can go change the measures and dimensions it uses, and it will learn from those. And when you publish the app, that learning is carried forward to all of your users. As an end user, you can do the same thing, but the learning remains in the context of you as a user. It doesn't carry through to other users because it's technically possible, we just haven't opened it up. We want to take it step by step because we don't want to end up in a situation where one business user makes a mistake and it impacts the entire business, right? So we will take a very measured approach in end user learning because you can really mess things up in a governed environment. But yeah, as a developer, you can train the system, absolutely. All right. Well, that was it. Hopefully this was useful. Thank you very much, and I'll be here. I want to hand it to Joe.